As we'll start off with, this team with the injuries, I feel like even in the Steve Cohen era, they still can't catch a break with Carlos Carrasco. It seems like he's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. And, I think it's a hamstring tear for him. The Mets got him in the Francisco Lindor trade. It felt like he was almost an add-on, which was like so great. Like the Mets were getting a really good pitcher along with one of the best players in baseball in Lindor. And he had a great year in 2020, 2.91 ERA. And then 2019, his season was, it was cut short, but, he was diagnosed with cancer. And just like, I know he had a high ERA, but he had a lot going on, I think. So, and then you go back to 2018 and he was just lights out again, over 200 Ks, 17 wins, 3.33 ERA. And, you just see that he would have been such a nice piece in that Mets rotation. And he will be once he comes back. And, it seems like they'll get back to him around Memorial Day, which will be interesting. SMY's Andy Martino reported that. And it's for me, it stinks that Carrasco gets hurt because everyone was talking about him because he really lanked out this Mets rotation, especially when you already have Noah Syndergaard, who's going to start the year on the injury list. So again, it's just that Mets depth. I think they have more depth this year, but the injuries right now, if they have like a few more, they'd really start piling up.
Yeah, I think that Carrasco is interesting too. He in spring training, he's kind of struggled with health even before this hamstring. He started late because he got the COVID vaccine. And then they said that he was sitting out with some like elbow soreness for a little bit in the middle of there. And now he's out again for 6 to 8 weeks. So I guess with him, it really will be the key for him will really be keeping him healthy. And then he is a great added bonus onto this team, someone that people weren't really expecting for the Mets to get. And he would just be like a fun extra depth for them, but it will be the key of keeping him healthy. He's obviously had he had leukemia in the past. So I think he is a really strong added piece as long as he's there. And so we'll have to see how the 6 to 8 weeks goes. All of that could be extended if his injury doesn't do as well. But luckily for the Mets, they have done such a good job in the offseason that they have depth to cover him right now. So they are still okay, even though he's injured.
Yeah, you talk about if his timeline gets extended, the Mets know too much about that. I remember Jed Lowry had like 7 at-bats for the Mets. He was their big free agent signing a few years ago. And it was first 2 weeks, then it was 2 months, and then it ended up being 2 years, the way it was all said and done with him. But so let's hope it doesn't get to that point. But with this Mets staff, I think the difference between this year and last year, where they also had a lot of injuries too, they have the depth this year, which I think is the biggest thing. And obviously DeGrom, everyone's going to talk about him. He's just looked amazing this spring, and it's so nice to just see him pitch. And just that's when as a Mets fan, it's springtime when Jacob DeGrom is just dealing on the mound, and Marcus Stroman looks good. He has a new pitch. Taijuan Walker threw 5 innings scoreless in the spring. So those guys are coming along. You have David Peterson, who had a nice rookie season last year. And then, you also have Joey Lucchesi. I think Joey Fuego is his nickname. And he's a guy that's going to jump into this 5 spot, it seems. And last year or over the last few years, he's been like a 4 ERA guy. And then you have Jordan Yamamoto behind him, kind of like a 4 ERA guy. They got him from the Marlins, Lucchesi from the Padres. And to me, like those 2 guys are just going to be so big with depth, because last year you had guys, and this is no disrespect to them, like Ariel Jurado pitching and guys with 8 ERAs, Rick Porcello having like a 6 ERA, Michael Wacha. All these guys, they're basically has-beens. At least the Mets don't have those guys coming in, and you have guys that can pitch you 5-6 innings and can get you through games. That's so important, especially now we're back to 162 games. That's, to me, the biggest thing with this Mets season. Everyone's going to talk about Lindor and those moves, but this depth is just so important. They also added Walker as well. I think those 3 guys could really be the saving grace of the rotation until Carrasco comes back, and then you have Syndergaard coming back, and you really have the big guns then coming out for the Mets.
Yeah, I think that come maybe June-ish. Is that when Syndergaard's supposed to come back? Yeah, so I think that maybe come June, that you're really finally going to see the Mets that you paid for this offseason. You're finally going to see all of those pieces work together as long as Carrasco comes back and Syndergaard comes back on time. That finally in June is where you're going to see it. But yeah, like you said, they have Jordan Yamamoto and Joey Lucchesi. So I think that they're going to be okay to cover Carrasco spots, because either of those guys, I think, could pop into that starting rotation for them and be the 5th guy. So I think that they're going to be okay, but it's not until it just sucks because Mets fans are still waiting, they're still waiting for that big like aha reveal moment where all of their pieces that they've worked for and all this time, and now the new manager Steve Cohen, when it's all come together, and that is still delayed even further. So I think that part of it definitely stinks as a Mets fan, but
yeah, it's a story of the life, really, I gotta say.
It's just another day in the life for you guys. I mean, it just seems like it's kind of never ending, the waiting to get good. But I do feel like that wait is coming closer. It's getting shorter, even if it's not quite yet, it's not quite today, it won't be quite on opening day. I still think that even without Carrasco and without Syndergaard, you still have a really solid and a really great depth in your team.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part when you're looking at, they have now 5 guys that can give you the innings. I mean, they couldn't before. I mean, that's just what it was last year. And you had the hitting, which was playing. I mean, they were like the best batting average in baseball, but you had no one who can pitch. And then the bullpen would get wore out because if you're only going 2 innings, it's too much. It's everything tumbles on itself. And then, you get a really bad team. But that's just, I mean, this Mets rotation, I'm very happy that they picked up some guys because every team has injuries. And I think that was the one thing that Brodie van Wagenen and that kind of regime didn't understand, because they said, he would go out and say the Mets have the best rotation in baseball and then have the highest ERA. And that was just, because they had 5 guys. And after that, it was AA guys. And that's what they were putting out. And now at least you have guys that can come up in here. Yeah, they're not big names. They're not your big name 5 starters, but they can get you innings. And that's so important early. And then it may be an omen having Syndergaard and Carrasco with a well rested up when everyone's obviously going through the, that tough major league season where, once you hit July, June, you're like, it's grueling. And now you have 2 fresh guys that can just be so big. So hopefully, as you said, they come back and we don't see any, setbacks. But again, that's going to be really interesting. Also with the Mets bullpen as well. Another place where you have some injuries too, and they're going to need some players to step up, like Edwin Diaz, who's faltered in the past. So the pitching depth is going to be something that, as a Mets fan, I'm going to be really, interested to see, hopefully excited, the new depth, but that's kind of where I'm looking at kind of the biggest point of this team, especially on the pitching side of the ball.